Look, I can understand brand fanaticism, even if I almost never share it. The truth is that Samsung has earned the respect of a lot of people, maybe not so much mine because it feels like they copy Apple more than they should. But hey, they at least have the prestige of being one of the brands that competes directly, if not the one that competes the most, with the bitten Apple company. And that's why I want to talk to you about the 3 best Samsung phones to buy in 2026. Yes, I'm going to analyze the extensive list of Samsung phones, which is anything but short, and give you only 3 alternatives, one from each range. If you want to know them, I invite you to stay for this video, like a series of the 3 best phones from each brand. Although again, I want to warn you that it's quite hard to fit only 3 out of so many phones they have, and if yours isn't in this top, maybe it's still missing a few things to be the best. Also, the fairest thing from my point of view was to include one from each range. That's why position 3 is for the low end, position 2 is for the mid-range, and normally the first position is for the best option that's also close to high-end. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. And now yes, without telling you more about my life, let's start with position number 3. This spot goes to the Samsung Galaxy A16 in its 4G version. Yes, because the 5G version only changes the processor and is quite a bit more expensive. I know what you're going to say. Hey, Prime, has the Samsung Galaxy A17 4G already come out? Isn't it better than this A16 4G? Yes, but only in the name. At least in terms of numbers, it's literally above it because it's 17 instead of 16. But in terms of specifications and features, it's literally the same phone. And no, I'm not exaggerating. It has exactly the same processor, the same screen, the same battery capacity, the same camera sensors. It's an exact copy with only a change in the device numbering. That said, the other most important change that Samsung couldn't forget is that the A17 4G is quite a bit more expensive than the A16 4G. That's why if you have the opportunity to obviously buy the new version, the A17 4G for the same price as the A16 4G, do it. But otherwise, the Samsung Galaxy A16 4G is the same phone often costing up to $40 less and in a price range of between $110 and $150. What does the brand offer us? To start, we can't demand too much because we know we're in the low-mid-range sector, almost entry-level low-end, so the phone's features aren't the best, but they will at least satisfy you in daily use if you're not at all demanding. An ideal phone for your child, for example, or your grandfather or your father. Those people who only use social media for entertainment and need to stay connected. To start, in the build materials it shows that it's a very economical phone because we have plastic everywhere, the weight is just 200 g, and the dust and water resistant certification is IP42, very far from the IP67 we see starting from the Samsung Galaxy A26, for example. But really it's not worth paying more for certifications when we already know nobody buys phones to put them underwater. The screen has a 6.7-inch diagonal, with a fairly traditional size with acceptable bezels and, in fact, quite surprising if we consider how cheap the phone is. With a Super AMOLED panel that reaches full HD plus resolution of up to 1080 pixels, something that was quite hard to see not long ago, like 1 or 2 years back, in a low-end Samsung phone that at least had 1080 pixels resolution on its panel. That's why I don't criticize so much that its panel also only reaches 90 Hz refresh rate. I know the brand could directly include 120 Hz on this screen, but come on, they do it so you go for more expensive models and don't buy this Samsung Galaxy A16. With a peak brightness also quite improvable, of only 800 nits, but that's not too far from what's acceptable today, which would be something like 1000 or 1100 nits. A competent screen that we appreciate for having AMOLED technology, 1080 pixel resolution, and at least a refresh rate above 60 Hz, so from my point of view it passes without any shame or glory. Its processor, the MediaTek Helio G99. Yes, the one I almost always mock. And I mock it precisely because they want to sell it to you for $250, $300, $400. Yes, I'm looking at you, Infinix 50 Pro, when Samsung's $110 phone includes the same processor that isn't bad. For $110, including it in phones worth $250, even $350, is a real shame. This MediaTek Helio G99 is quite decent and is a low-end processor, scoring almost 400,000 points in the EE.UU test. This A16 also comes with UFS 2.2 memories, which was a pretty important point to put in the top, as well as being expandable via micro SD cards and having LPDDR4X RAM. So we know we don't have the best RAM or the best internal storage memories, nor the best processor, but as long as you don't ask for extreme performance, the A16 will be fine without problems. 5,000 mAh battery capacity with 25W fast charging speed. Another quite acceptable point. And as for the camera sensors, really despite having 3 on the back, the only standout is the main 50-megapixel one, the Samsung S5 KJN1 sensor that we've seen in many cheap phones, which doesn't have optical image stabilization, so it's not the best video recorder and takes decent photos in good lighting conditions. The 5-megapixel ultra-wide lens and the 2-megapixel macro lens. Believe me when I tell you they're more decorative than anything else. In general terms, and to summarize for you, the Samsung Galaxy A16, if you're a person who doesn't want to spend too much on a mobile device or doesn't need such an expensive one because you use it for calls and WhatsApp messages, the A16 4G is the ideal alternative. But if you're a bit more demanding, we have the Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition for you. Yes, this is the one that takes second place in this top. But before diving into the details, why is the Samsung Galaxy S24 FE worth it? I want to give an honorable mention to the Samsung Galaxy A56, which yes, with the massive price drop it's had, now easily available brand new for $300, is also an option worth considering. It used to cost almost the same as this S24 Fan Edition, around $420. That's why I always recommended the S24 FE over the A56, because obviously if you can get a flagship for the price of a mid-ranger, you go straight for the flagship. That doesn't mean the A56 is bad, just that it's not better than the S24 FE, which is why I decided to place it second even though it technically belongs in the mid-range category. This flagship at mid-range price is, from my point of view, an absolute steal from the brand. But if you can't find the S24 FE in your country, or it's much more expensive than the Galaxy A56, meaning more than a $120 to $150 difference, go for the A56. However, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition has several improvements over that model, like IP68 dust and water resistance. The A56 only has IP67, so it's slightly ahead there. But the most significant and eye-catching upgrade is in the processor, which delivers roughly double the power of the Exynos 1580 in the A56. We're talking about the Exynos 2400E, built on 4nm architecture with LPDDR5X RAM and UFS 3.1 storage, scoring over 1,600,000 points on AnTuTu, outperforming 93% of all tested devices and packing enough muscle to run demanding games or personal productivity apps like video editing and exporting without issues. Plus, it benefits from things like LPDDR5X RAM for much more efficient multitasking and UFS 3.1 storage that makes reading, writing, and file transfers noticeably faster than on the A56. And look, it's not just raw power. This S24 Fan Edition also has an excellent 6.7-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display with up to 1080p resolution, 120Hz refresh rate, and peak brightness of nearly 2000 nits, protected by Corning Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. Basically, it's the kind of screen you'd expect on any solid mid to high range phone, and if you're not super demanding about wanting higher resolution or refresh rates above 120Hz, you'll be thrilled with it. But nothing is perfect with this device, because there's one area where the A56 actually beats it: battery capacity and wired charging speed, with 4,700 mAh versus the A56 5,000 mAh and only 25W wired charging compared to the A56 45W. But watch out, the S24 FE has features the A56 lacks, like charge bypass and wireless charging up to 15W, plus a battery rated for up to 2,000 charge cycles. So even though capacity isn't huge, it's built to last, and you get multiple charging options or the ability to route power directly to the phone if you game while plugged in. And where it really crushes the A56, besides power, is in cameras. 3 rear sensors, none of them filler, the 50-megapixel main Samsung GN3, 13-megapixel ultra-wide, and 8-megapixel telephoto, with optical stabilization, decent optical zoom, 8K video recording capability, solid image processing, and plenty of AI photography tools like removing people from scenes. All this adds up to basically getting a flagship for mid-range money. It's very easy to find this phone under $430 in the 8GB RAM/128GB storage version. Second place and silver medal to the S24 FE. But moving on to the gold medal, the best Samsung phone for the best possible price in the high-end category. Many would expect me to say the Samsung S25 Ultra, but the reality is no. This spot goes to the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Yes, even with the S25 Ultra being the most recent and the S26 Ultra just around the corner. For 2026, I still lean toward buying the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Why? Simple. The generational jump from the S24 Ultra to the S25 Ultra was downright embarrassing with basically no changes, and the differences between the S25 Ultra and the upcoming S26 Ultra will be even smaller, like comparing a house cat to a lion. Slightly bigger, but still a feline. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra even keeps features that got worse in the S25 Ultra, like Bluetooth connectivity for the S Pen, which lets you remotely trigger photos with the integrated button. Something missing on the S25 Ultra. Plus, when you compare screens, camera sensors, battery capacity, and charging speeds, nothing changes meaningfully. They just slap in a slightly more powerful processor and call it a day. But let's go over the specs. The S24 Ultra still has one of the best screens among Android phones, a massive 6.8-inch monster with practically non-existent bezels and a square design, Quad HD Plus resolution, up to 1440 pixels. LTPO technology for variable 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate, and anti-reflective coating that cuts down glare under sunlight. Its Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor isn't far behind the newer Snapdragon 8 Elite, still delivering over 2,022 points. Plenty for extremely demanding users who emulate retro console games or handle heavy workloads like video editing. Paired with LPDDR5X RAM and UFS 4.0 storage for the perfect combo of power and multitasking smoothness. It starts at 12 GB RAM and 256 GB storage in the base model, and with memory prices rising, the S26 Ultra might match or even downgrade this. Plus a 5,000 mAh battery with 45W wired charging, charge bypass, wireless charging, and reverse wireless, the full autonomy package. And crucially, it gets 7 years of OS updates. Announced in 2024, it'll stay current through 2031. Camera-wise, it remains one of the absolute best even nearly 2 years later. So the ideal pick is this S24 Ultra, which offers nearly identical features to the upcoming S26 Ultra but at a massively depreciated price. You can find it refurbished or used for around $650 to $700. I personally sold my wife's for $650, an absolute steal for the buyer, or brand new sealed for about $750. But as always, family, at the end of the video, tell me what you thought of this top. Do you think I should have swapped any positions?